was hot. Too hot. My throat was on fire. I needed a drink, and I needed it fast. Wait a minute. What's this? This water is so dirty it's like bath water. It's so filthy even the rats won't touch it. Someone had to clean up this town, and it looked like it was going to be me. Suddenly it hit me. Well, well, well. It's in the well. It had been there all along. Pure, clean, delicious. But wait a second. There was practically nothing there. I was running out of steam. Where was all the water? Could it be on tap? I decided to take a walk and find out. In the desert, you may live a few days without anything to eat. But without water to drink, you could die within 48 hours. In some parts of the world, there's a lot of it around.
I use it for washing my bike,
washing up,
filling up swimming pools,
taking baths and
washing your clothes and
drinking, yeah.
Although 2/3 of the surface of the world is covered with water, most is undrinkable because it is salty. Water for drinking has to be fresh. But where does fresh water come from? The heat of the sun causes evaporation from the sea, rivers, and lakes. Water vapor rises up to form clouds, later to return as rain, as fresh water. The amount of rainfall varies throughout the world. Much of it drains into rivers, an obvious visible source of water, but a lot also sinks into the ground and collects far beneath the surface. Even the driest areas of the world have some water, but it's not always easy to find. For millions of people, collecting water is one of the most important tasks of the day. Without water, they would die. It is hard work. In some places, it can take up to 6 hours a day to collect enough water for a single family. The problem is, while water can save lives, dirty water can also kill. In the third world, 80% of all diseases result from drinking dirty water. Simple dirt isn't the problem. It's the hidden diseases carried in it, like cholera and typhoid. In many parts of the world, access to a tap is difficult, and often there are no toilets at all. So it's hard to stop harmful germs from getting into the water. It is extremely difficult to stop diseases like diarrhea from spreading among the young. Diarrhea is a killer in the third world, especially among children under 5. Doctors and health workers do what they can to help. This baby in Malawi has lost so much body fluid, it needs liquid now. The treatment is sugar and salt mixed with water, But the only water available is the very water which caused the illness in the first place. It's better than nothing. These children are lucky. They're alive. Many of their younger brothers and sisters were less fortunate. In the Third World, 10,000 children die every day from the effects of diarrhea. Because of this, the first priority of many poor countries is to improve both the water supply and its quality. These villagers in Malawi have organized themselves to build a well to reach down to the clean water underground. They are also building public toilet facilities, essential because so many illnesses can come from hidden harmful germs found in excrement. Without toilets, germs can easily reach the drinking water. Now they have safer water for drinking, as well as a cleaner source of water for washing. In Britain, water supplies could also be as dangerous as those in the Third World. Only 100 years ago, there were outbreaks of cholera and typhoid. The water still comes from the same place, from rivers or from underground sources, but the British can afford to spend a lot purifying it before it's sent to their homes.
The first stage of purification is the rapid sand filter beds, and this is a layer of coarse sand, underneath that a layer of gravel or shingle. The water sinks through that and then goes onto a secondary filter bed. The secondary filter bed just contains very fine sand, and we can actually reuse the sand. That's why we actually use sand in our filtration method. It's very cheap and it's reusable, and it's one of the most effective methods of removing things from the water.
Add some chlorine as a disinfectant, and the water is safe enough to be pumped through a huge network of pipes to users. As in the Third World, whatever goes down here can affect the drinking water. But where does it go?
Suppose it just goes to the pipes and into the sewage, I suppose.
Goes to the sewers and then goes away somewhere.
Does it go back to the stage like cleansing and all that?
Below the streets is a complex network of sewers, taking everything that goes down the toilet and the drain to the sewage works. The sewage is held in huge tanks, where it is broken down naturally by bacteria. In this way, the sewage is made harmless. The solid sewage undergoes further treatment before some can be used as farm fertilizer. But in places like London, where there's so much of it, it's loaded onto ships to be dumped at sea, a practice many people feel is dangerous. The sewage works sends the rest of the treated liquid back into the river. All over the country, rivers receive treated waste from sewage works. Rivers from which the people draw much of their drinking water. If sewage is not treated properly, oxygen levels in the water, vital for fish and plant life, can become too low. This can threaten the very existence of life in the river.
Village Radio, Thames Bubbler. Victoria Dock Boy, swinging outward bound, permission for the barrier.
On the River Thames, when sewage works get overloaded, oxygen levels can get so low, the bubbler barge is called out. This barge pumps enormous amounts of extra oxygen into the water to help keep the fish alive. It's the only barge of its kind that deals solely with the effects rather than the causes of this problem. In Canada, another form of river pollution is threatening a whole way of life. Indians traditionally used to live by trapping and fishing. But as in many parts of the world, industry has arrived. It uses vast quantities of water in many of its processes. Much of its wastewater is polluting this river. Now Indians have to live alongside factories. Many are seeing their whole way of life disappear.
All the things we remember when we were younger, these kids can't even do. You know, the fishing and the growing up in the summer and swimming all summer long. That's where you lived, at the river, when we were younger, but they can't do that anymore.
The Barnes family lives on a Mohawk reservation by the St. Lawrence River. They have a swimming pool, even though the house overlooks the river.
We all know we're not supposed to swim in it, and you know, if you break out in sores, that's, you know, what we say, you know, you're not supposed to be in the river. And it's like infantigo, they're called, you know, it spreads and things like that, you know, just from being in something dirty.
Since we had the pool, it's been funner in the pool. We know we won't get sick.
As an Indian family, they used to consider hunting and fishing as part of their life.
I haven't gone trapping in a while. Oh. And when we do trap, it's mostly just for testing now, because my grandfather works with those people will come down and test the fish and different animals, so we do that.
Grandfather Tony Barnes caught this fish. It has no tail, a deformity due to the chemicals found in the river.
We froze it, then we trucked it to Gloversville, New York, and had it tested. The results were very high on about 5 different chemicals. You think the pupils over there would know that, what they were dumping in the river?
One man who does know what's being dumped in the river is another Mohawk, Kenny Jock, a biologist.
That's coming out of their pollution control system. So everything that they tried to get out of their smokestacks, they washed it out with this water, and you can see it's yellow because of the stuff that they take out of there. There are PAHs, they're called, cryolite and fluoride. It also has oil in it. It's very strong stuff. It's almost like acidic. There are PCBs in there.
PCBs are extremely dangerous chemicals. They are very difficult to dispose of and are in oil, which can be found on the riverbed.
The oil that has been laid down over the years, it's right in the mud right now. And if I put this paddle down into the mud and I shake it up a little bit, you'll see an oil slick coming out of here. The oil in here has PCBs in it. And like I say, anything that's in the mud here is absorbing the PCBs. The fish get it from the stuff that they eat, and they also can get it right through their skin.
PCBs can become concentrated in the fish, and fish are part of the food chain.
If humans consume fish that are polluted, they could have increased rates of cancer. That's one of the things that we fear with the PCBs. It also can cause liver damage. They can cause skin problems, chloracne. They can do many things, affect the central nervous system. They can compromise the immune system so that you can't fight off infections properly. You can warn people, don't eat the fish. If you catch the fish, don't eat them, put them back. But you can't warn the owls and the mink and the otter not to eat them. So they suffer the consequences of man's pollution. So it's very stressing on the Mohawk way of life. If they can't eat the fish and wildlife, it's very difficult to be a traditional Mohawk.
You know how the kids, my grandchildren, asked me a month ago, take them fishing, take them fishing. There's just no fishing. It's a sin. Maybe 20 years, it'll be good again.
Water pollution can also come from less obvious sources. Agriculture. Pesticides and fertilizers not taken up and used by crops can seep through the soil into the underground water supplies and into rivers. Nitrogen fertilizers make plants and organisms in the river grow, spreading like a green blanket over the water. This interferes with the river's natural balance. Chemicals called phosphates, found in many soap powders and detergents, can also end up in the river. These, too, can encourage the growth of organisms such as algae, some of which are dangerous.
People have been officially warned to keep away from Britain's largest reservoir after poisonous algae were found in the water. Dogs and sheep have died in the area, but Anglian Water says the drinking water drawn from the reservoir is safe.
This reservoir water comes from rivers and from underground supplies. If some of these supplies are contaminated, could the drinking water be at risk? Some companies recognize their products could be contributing to these problems.
Whatever the source is, we're saying where we can, we'll look and say if we can get these materials out of some of our products, then we will. So we've taken the phosphates out of the surface cleaners and the washing powder, and we've stocked other branded lines that have got similar phosphate-free recipes.
So none of us can afford to take any of our water supplies for granted. For many, it is a matter of life and death. With a growing world population, there's an increasing pressure to provide more and more water, not only for drinking, but for agriculture. Huge amounts of previously untapped underground water are being pumped to the surface to irrigate crops, but these supplies could run out. With the growth of industry, more factories need more and more water. As these demands increase, we must try to protect and conserve our supplies to the very last drop.